watching Force 13's live streaming service. Good evening, this is the latest from Force 13 HQ. You can see the view out here right now. Well, let's take us away from there. Clear night here and quite cool, which is a lovely change to what we've had recently. My name's Nathan Foy and we're looking at what's going on in the West Pacific and in the Atlantic because we have two hurricane strength storms active. Maria, as we've been watching it trek through the Western Pacific for the last 5 days now that we've been doing full update coverage on the storm. There are warnings everywhere and we expect landfall will probably occur in China in around 2 hours or less at its current rate. We're also tracking Hurricane Chris. Not much of it you can see on that particular imagery there. Don't worry, we'll get some more imagery which will hopefully help us out on that one. And also to help us during our stream tonight is our team consisting in this hour of David, Gabe and Mike. Good evening to you all.
Good evening and good to be here again.
David is showing us a view from where?
Beigan Baisha Harbour.
Beigan Baisha Harbour. We need to find out where exactly that is. We'll get onto that. In the meantime,
I'll have a look.
Yeah, well, there we are. So that is one view in Maria's scope right now. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, I expect we're only going to be here for the hour. Who knows? If things go well, maybe it'll be longer. We'll see. Need to change that bar at the bottom as well. I don't know how that happened or how it has not changed. We'll get to that as soon as we can. It should have changed. No idea why. But just to clarify, Maria is not 130 miles an hour. It's down to 115 miles per hour, 115. And a pressure of 948 millibars. Chris is at 85 miles per hour and a pressure of 980. So just ignore that bottom part until it gets changed. I have no idea what's going on with all of that technical stuff, but it should have changed. Anyway, David, I think you wanted to say something.
It's one of 5 major islands of the Matsu Islands. Matsu Islands.
The Matsu Islands. Here's the latest view of Maria right now. So it's a part of Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and it's...
Or is it?
I think it's the northern end.
Yes, it's one of those outlying... In fact, it is... right in the typhoon right now, David, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see later on that an eye may appear. that the eye may move over that. There we go. We've got the update now at the bottom of our screen. Chris is 85 miles an hour, pressure 980. Maria 115 miles an hour, 948 millibars. We're going to be running a poll shortly as well, and it might seem an obvious one, but we're running with it. And the question that we're going to be asking is, do you think the World Meteorological Organization, the WMO, should break convention and retire the name Maria worldwide? It's a question that's been on a lot of people's lips for a long time, and I wonder what people are going to say when we put that out onto the poll on our main YouTube channel page in the community tab. You'll see that appear anytime. I'm just typing it up now. But whilst I'm typing that, what are your guys' thoughts on that? It was retired in the Atlantic last year for the terrible damage that it caused in the Caribbean and in Puerto Rico. What do you think? Should the WMO break convention to avoid any more Maria misery?
I would support yes.
Well, I would. I don't know. It depends on what damage, how much damage, and fatalities it causes when it makes landfall.
Indeed. If you've got any questions that are different to that, or anything at all, do send your messages in. There's a lot of typhoon warnings in Taiwan, as you can see down the bottom of your page there. Not surprising at all that that's the case. And there's a new image that's just come in from Typhoon Maria, drawing ever closer, and if I play the loop, hopefully it will load in not too much time. It's actually moving through the Matsu Islands now. You can just about see it on the graphic there. You can see the movement of Maria has not been west-northwest, it has been due west, and it's moving ever closer towards land. As you saw at the top of the hour, those distances, it's only, what was it, 59 miles southeast of Saipu, 95 miles east-northeast of Fuzhou in China, and we expect that landfall will occur in about 2 hours, maybe less, depends on how it goes. You can just about see Taiwan down the bottom there as well, also being impacted by a significant chunk of the storm, although it has to be said the worst of the storm right now is in the northern side at the minute. And Taiwan has probably seen the worst of the storm by now, but there is still a little bit more yet before we can say that Taiwan is in the clear, and that's why obviously the typhoon warnings remain in place. And of course the rainfall warnings, the rain is going to be very significant indeed. David's showing us another viewpoint from the NOAA floaters, showing you a more extended look there and how that turn has been made.
Definitely has changed. Now, what would be causing it to curve into that direction?
Well, you know, it may well just be a temporary jog, but it's happened at, you know, we're talking about putting one location in China into the projected path and another one just missing out on the worst of the eye wall as a result. It's really hit and miss along that coast there, and if you do know anyone in that area, then obviously you know, it's going to be a serious situation for all concerned, from Fuzhou northwards through to Wenzhou.
Unless it's trying to do, for some reason, an eye wall replacement cycle, and the eye just kind of jogs straight over. Oh dear. I just kind of jog straight over, then, because there's a space under the eye right there that kind of opens up. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
The Joint Typhoon Warning Center's latest advisory, the infrared satellite imagery, depicts a gradual weakening system with deep convective banding wrapping around a 30 nautical mile oblong eye. The same imagery also indicates some erosion of the deep convection over the southwest quadrant due to the initial interaction with Taiwan. A vertical wind shear 15 to 20 knots, sea surface temperature is 28 Celsius.
Yeah, and sea surface temperatures are warm enough now, but obviously that land interaction getting in the way, we're not going to see any more intensification. Landfall is so close now that, you know, it's certainly gone for Maria. Thankfully it won't get any worse than it is at present. We'll take a little break on that, and now we'll take a look at Hurricane Chris as soon as I can get my view up here. There is Chris right now, and I've been very impressed by this storm since last night. You may remember on our coverage we well, you know, we sort of called it a hurricane when it wasn't, and then it wasn't, and it still wasn't, all the way up until just about an hour ago. They actually, that was the first time that they called it a hurricane, and I was completely baffled all day today to see that Chris had not yet become a hurricane. Here it is now, 85 miles an hour, and it's on its way, intensifying rather significant. I wouldn't say rapidly, as one or two people did on Twitter today, I saw, but significantly is the word, and I certainly wouldn't rule out major hurricane status now. Any thoughts from the team?
I'm with you, Nathan. The storm structure looks really great, and I was kind of surprised they didn't call it a hurricane last night too. It did look pretty good.
I'll
Yeah.
support that.
Definitely.
Hold on a second.
Just see if we can get... just got a little bit of the animation there. Hopefully all of that will load and we can play it normally. But there it is, and a lot of people are going to make the comparison to Gert, aren't they? Hurricane Gert of last year, which was a Category 3, occurred in the middle of August, though. It's a month early this time, and it's not really going to be that much like Gert, because it's also going to be going towards the islands as well. Although, you know, it's not... We saw in earlier model runs and in the live stream yesterday that, you know, it was going to get awfully close to Nova Scotia and then make landfall in Newfoundland. Well, let's just take a look at the latest chart from the National Hurricane Center. This is current, and you can see now how it's not likely to affect Nova Scotia, and it's only just got Newfoundland in the center of the cone there, and the way it's trending, it may well miss both. Obviously, we can't say that for certain yet. There's no warnings or watches in effect either yet, which is quite interesting, because I would have thought, given that it's just 36 hours from its closest point to southern Nova Scotia, maybe they might have issued hurricane watches there, especially given how knee-jerk they are with warnings these days. I'm actually quite surprised that no watches have been issued yet. And then you get the UK hyper machine, which I have unfortunately been subjected to here on this side of the pond, with certain national newspapers saying that Chris is definitely coming and will batter the British Isles. Well, the National Hurricane Centre don't think so, calling for a curvature towards the north towards the end of the forecast period, and I agree with that. It's what the GFS has been hinting at for days, that any extratropical cyclones that get near the British Isles will curve away to the north before getting here. So let's just get that one out of the way. Anyone's thoughts on Chris and the forecast for Chris right now?
Well, it's going to be Nova Scotia, the coastal region, that's going to get the high seas, wind. But the bulk of the activity is going to be offshore. And Nathan, I've got the total precipitable water, and you clearly see the movement of Chris. And I think we said yesterday that it had a bit of a southerly jolt, and it's definitely heading northeast.
as you can see quite clearly there. And there's the wind probabilities, the graphical wind probabilities. Nova Scotia is getting into the lower range of that wind probabilities now. But is that for hurricane? That's for tropical storm force winds as well. So yeah, and Newfoundland there under significant chances still, but it is still deviating away slightly. So certainly no threat to the US. Atlantic Canada still watching it very closely. I don't think the anticipated impacts will be as big as we first thought, but they could still be significant or severe, and obviously common sense has to prevail. And you know, there was one fatality earlier on in the life of Chris because of rip currents off the coast of North Carolina. I don't know if there are any more that occurred after that. I didn't hear of anything. But obviously Chris right now, you can't take it for granted at its current wind speed at 85 miles an hour. If it gets stronger than the National Hurricane Center's projection, they're saying that its maximum wind speed will get to Category 2, 100 miles an hour. And you know, it could exceed that. And if it exceeds the forecast, then the forecast has to change. So always be mindful of that as well. You can see the percentage chances on the left hand side there. They've just briefly flicked past us. And I'll just read out those latest wind probabilities. I'm not sure if they've changed at all. I think they're very similar anyway. Cape Race in Newfoundland, 60% chance of tropical storm conditions. Isle St. Pierre, 44%. Burgeo, 13%. Eddy Point, 4%. Sydney, Nova Scotia, 13%. And Sable Island, 65%. Halifax now only at 3%. And you saw at the top of the hour, Chris ticking down those miles, 888 miles from Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's the hurricane wind cone, the hurricane force wind distribution there that David's showing as well. Chances, probabilities again. And most notably as well, the National Hurricane Center predicting that it will turn extratropical before reaching Newfoundland, and will also weaken from hurricane strength to tropical storm strength. But again, you can't take this forecast for granted. If it does go stronger than expected, then those points on the cone will be raised in intensity as well. So hurricane force conditions still a distinct possibility for a lot of that coastal area of Atlantic Canada. Okay, if you've got any comments or questions for us, send your message in live, and we can take a look at it and see what we think. Just go back to this view here. Well, it was all working before. We had all the other two panels, they were all working, and now they're not again. Okay, wonderful. Could Maria pull a Mekunu and stall off the coast of China is a question that we received a few moments ago. I would sincerely hope not, and none of the model indications are suggesting anything like that, but then again I suppose they weren't for Mekunu either. It's a much more guaranteed possibility, but yes, I suppose, you know, given that what goes on in this area sometimes, especially after a lot of storms in the past that have made landfall in Taiwan, they can sometimes stall on the way to China as well. It doesn't look like it's slowing down, and given how late in the day we are now, I don't think it will slow down, and certainly not enough for it to stall off the coast. It is so very close to reaching land now. We're talking about almost into the realm of minutes, about an hour and a half away maybe, that we're looking at here. Alright, I think we had some more questions as well. Are there any other areas of investigation in the Atlantic Basin? David, could you take a look at that for us? We know that we've got the remnants of Beryl, and they are still at a 50% chance of development. I just wonder if David could show us that for us. And then we'll get back to the other thing that you're showing us there.
What have we got?
Well, whilst he gets up that, I can tell you that it is a 50% chance in the next 5 days, 20% chance in the next 48 hours. The remnants of Beryl, they're producing gusty winds and areas of heavy rain over much of Hispaniola, the Turks and Caicos, and adjacent Atlantic waters. Little development is expected during the next day or so due to land interaction and unfavourable upper-level winds. However, the disturbance is expected to turn northward over the western Atlantic on Wednesday, where upper-level winds could become a little more conducive. They are sending in a plane on Wednesday afternoon as well, and I believe David can show us some of that too as soon as I can find the right button to press.
Nathan, I've got the advisory on XBL from
Yeah,
the
that's
NHC
basically
on the screen.
there. It is basically a lot of what I just read out is contained in that posting there. So we are continuing to monitor that as well, with a 50% chance in 5 days. I was just looking at any forecast models on this. I don't have them with me. David, do you have anything on that?
Oh, if you give me a minute, I'll bring it
We'll
up.
give you a minute. In the meantime, we'll just take another little look at Typhoon Maria as it moves ever closer to land. This is the full loop. Now this covers a passage of time that is about, let's see here, 1.5 hours. So it's moved that far in 1.5 hours. It's what makes me think it's going to be another 1.5 hours or maybe 2 before the landfall in China occurs. And I suppose it's probably best for us to remain here until it does that. But it is drawing very near indeed. Only a few dozen miles. And I want to maybe familiarize us all whilst we're on the air here as to those locations that are on the coast. Now, the main city in the area, I'm just going to turn this off for a minute so you can see the map. You may be able to see Fuzhou, F-U-Z-H-O-U, which is in the eye wall almost. That is a city in China. It's got a population in the urban area of 4.5 million. And that is likely to be in a significant part of the storm's eye wall. You will probably see category 1, 2, maybe even category 3 conditions at worst. Probably not category 3, but maybe category 2 conditions in that city. Further north, you've got a smaller location, although still significant as far as I can see from the map, called Ningdi. That may well be ground zero here for the landfall. If we just zoom in there again, you can see Ningdi there. It's in the inlet, that area, and in relation to the storm, it is very close to where we expect that eye to pass over. Now that city has a population of 2.8 million, so there's 2 significant population centers that could receive significant hurricane typhoon force winds of maybe even 100 miles an hour sustained, 160 kilometers per hour sustained. And then off the coast there you have a lot of small islands. Just reading off the map here, Zhuguang, Nangan, Beigan and Dongyin. A lot of those Taiwanese islands off the coast of China. David was showing one of them near the start of tonight's stream on the webcam, and it was looking very typhoon-like. And I'm not asking you to bring that back, David, but could you bring back the radar that you had on the screen a moment ago? Okay, I don't think we have David at the minute. I believe we have Orlando present.
You got me?
Oh. Well,
I got the Maria one, sorry, the
okay.
radar.
Orlando, have you been following Maria?
Yeah, I have been following it time to time again. Right now, I'm aware that it's heading into China and Taiwan, that region and that vicinity, but fortunately, it has begun to weaken. So, I just say for people that are close to the shore that if they haven't evacuated already, they should stay indoors and hopefully they're sheltered and they have all the materials that they should be equipped with, and they should be riding this thing out. unfortunately, this area's used to this type of weather, so it's more likely that the people around there are more temperate to this type of events.
And we had a question that came in a moment ago about Chris. Do we think it will be a Category 2? What do you think? National Hurricane Center thinks so?
I think
Yes.
it can. I think it can, for sure.
Who else was there in the background then?
That was me. Yes, I do think it could.
Does anyone think it could reach Category 3?
I mean, I don't know. That's a tough question because it can't be ruled out at the moment, but right now I'd stick with Category 2.
I think it could reach. I think it could possibly reach Cat 3 if it wanted to. But I mean, that's yet to be.
I agree.
It,
Go ahead.
That's Mike over there in the background as well. We've got quite a populated chat tonight. What are your thoughts on Chris?
Category 2 is certainly possible. However, Category 3 is not likely.
Okay, I think we missed the end of what he said. Mike has got a very temperamental microphone, unfortunately. We are having to deal with that. More questions that came in. Do you think that the 2 hurricanes in July might be a warning sign for an active season in the Atlantic? Now, we had Hank on 2 nights ago to talk about a similar question that was posed, and he was of the mind of, no, not really. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
repeat that, please. I'm sorry. just repeat
Whether
that
you
again.
think, basically, whether the current activity in the Atlantic is a sign of things to come. Now, I sort of, just put it into Hank's court to say, 2017 had Brett, and people said back then it wasn't a sign of things to come, and it sort of was, tenuously, but, what do you think?
I don't really think you can say that it's a sign of things to come because I mean, I know this what I'm about to talk about isn't in the Atlantic, but I mean, if you take a look at the 2010 Eastern Pacific storms, it was practically record active storms in July, and then the rest of the year was basically just a sluggish in the Eastern Pacific.
So
But
do
I
you
mean,
think that will happen now?
I think it might, but I mean, right now we're just. I don't want to say it will or will not because then because we don't really know. We're just kind of sitting here and we're waiting to see.
Let's zoom out on Maria here. Actually,
Well,
let's zoom back in again and see if I'd actually prefer if someone could bring up the whole Himawari 8 picture of the Asian area, because we had a question. What do you think about the flooding in Japan? When will it end? They have a friend there, and I just want to, if possible, see if we can have a look at the picture in Japan on the satellite right now. Does anyone have that?
It's finding it.
Searching for it.
unfortunately, I don't have that at my disposal.
We'll get that shortly. At the minute, you're looking at imagery of Maria as it moves ever closer towards its landfall. I think, Orlando, you wanted to say something before.
Oh yeah. Back to the previous question. If the activity in the Atlantic is signs of things to come, I think personally that it's probably is more so of a sign of the possibilities of more intense storms, but not the sign of a more active season as of right now. But when it comes to activity, I think at the moment anything goes.
Yeah, that's a point. I just lost my train of thought because I was looking at a load of other things as well. Will Chris make landfall at Newfoundland at hurricane intensity or tropical storm intensity? Now, the National Hurricane Center at the minute think that it's going to be extratropical and down to a tropical storm. But as I said before, if it goes stronger than expected, then you never know. We may see hurricane and tropical hurricane landfall for Newfoundland.
Yeah, that's can't be outruled as well at the moment because the Atlantic so far has proven to be unpredictable when it comes to storm development.
All right, and we've just had a question here. Orlando, please tell us, can we rule out 2005?
Oh my God! Yeah, yes.
That was an
I
actual.
would-
Yeah, that was a question. Yeah, that was a question.
I think we can outrule 2005.
You can't. You saying we can't?
I said we can.
Oh, we can. Okay, good, good.
I don't think. Well, it's been. We're already into. Emily was already a category 5 at July the 17th, and we're already at July the 10th, and we're only
Yeah.
on Chris right now.
We'll
I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna see
2005.
I don't think we're gonna see a 2005 repeat or anything like that.
Be a tough
I
act for
think
me, yeah.
I think personally, the day that we have a 2005 type season and 2018 Atlantic hurricane season is the day that I can confirm that God has abandoned humanity.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Well, don't. Well, okay. Well, I'm curious as to if there are any very incredibly active seasons that happen that had a lot of many named storms even just a little bit after the.
I think
Not-
maybe 2012, maybe a year where there was like a mixed bag of like storms that couldn't do it and storms that actually did pretty well. So
We're
Well,
looking
there
at
you
visible imagery now of Typhoon Maria, the latest from the Himawari 8 satellite, just as it's about to make landfall. Indeed, it has moved over, and you can see in that latest imagery one of those islands. It looks to me as though it might be, let's see here, I want to get this right. I do believe it's Dong Yin that may have just had the eye of Maria, and Beigan and Nangan looks like it could be entering the eye nowish. Just a minute on that. David, did you find anything from before? No?
No.
Well, that's okay. Do you still have that webcam? Because I'm very curious to see what's going on with that. Okay, there's
another one.
there's an okay. Where's that?
Zong
Dong Yin.
Harbor.
That is actually the island that just had the eye. So that must be the other side of the eye wall just coming in here. It appears to me.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'm way behind then.
And there's this one.
Please, yes. Now you can see this one. This is Beigan. Now the eye should be coming in here imminently. And look at the boats.
It's been like that for I've probably close to an hour or more. I did see on another webcam there's somebody walking out where the boats were moored. Not
God.
actually this shot, there was another one, but you can see the conditions aren't good.
If you're wondering about our poll so far, whether you think the World Meteorological Organization should break convention and retire the name Maria worldwide, 84% of you so far say yes.
Nathan, whilst we're looking at the harbour streaming cam, I'm just cited a question about should Category 6
Oh,
be
no.
added, but my response would be it would have to be a full-blown discussion at the WMO, but I wouldn't support it.
Thank you. Completely pointless.
Yeah.
Again,
Well,
this is the view in, what was it called again? Beigan, which is, I don't know about the pronunciation. Do pardon me. I've no affiliation with the language, I'm afraid. But it is one of the islands that is very close indeed to the Eye of Maria, and Maria is likely going to pass over maybe this exact location, the Eye of the Storm, very soon. I'm just trying to see whether we can get some sort of grip here on how close the storm's eye is to that particular island right now. In fact, I can tell you, looking at the map here, that this is the eye wall. The southwestern eye wall is over this area right now. David, could you just bring us back to that other webcam that you had up, because it looks to me as though that might be in the eye right now. Can't quite tell there. I think it's just skimming the edge of the eye. Those are two webcams that are currently live right now. That one is on the island of Dongyin, and that is currently at least on the edge of the eye, and it looks to me as though it is a little bit calmer there right now.
Possibility. But the other one's definitely rougher.
There we are. Bring us back to the other one. We'll keep on this one again, I think, because it's looking very interesting. This is the southwestern eye wall of Typhoon Maria. Is it at its worst? Well, probably not. The southwestern side is sort of in the middle. It looks, in fact, if we just bring up the satellite briefly, the southeastern side there, or the eastern side in general, is really breaking up something nasty there. The northeastern side is the worst part of the storm. You can see those darkening colours in the northeastern side. I can't draw anything, but the island that we just saw on the webcam is somewhere around there, where that marker is. So it is very close indeed to the Eye of Maria, which is due to make landfall in around an hour on the Chinese mainland.
Well, there we are.
I was just looking at some more information there as well. Nothing much, but this is the latest that we've got right now, and you can see an emergency vehicle there as well, driving along, hopefully I assume on the lookout for any suspicious or silly activity that people may be committing along the coastline. Obviously it's not a place to be right now. Maria is still a Category 3 typhoon with winds of 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 948 millibars according to the JTWC. According to the JMA, the pressure of the storm is 955 millibars, and interesting how they differ in the pressure there, because they actually have the same wind speed. They actually agree for once. 115 miles per hour. That is approximately, let me just get that right, 185, I think it is, kilometers per hour. Something like that.
Let's sit here. I'm going to check that really quickly.
But this is what we're looking at right now. That's Maria. We're also looking at Hurricane Chris, which is not as big a concern right now, although I have to say it's looking good. This is Hurricane Chris right now. The center of Chris's eye has a temperature of 12 degrees Celsius, which is actually pretty good. It's looking the part. I would say that this is already a Category 2.
I would definitely agree with that. Wow. That's almost. How strong of a cat dude would you say?
Only minimum right now, but I would say that's probably 100 miles an hour.
I'd agree. I
Crazy.
agree. Very. What's even crazier is that UNHC haven't been picking up on that very much.
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? They seem to have gone quite conservative on their forecasts, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on this storm for the time being. I was there's no word for it. I was completely baffled in how they hadn't declared it a hurricane last night, or at least early this morning. Yet, even as we entered the afternoon hours on the US East Coast, they still hadn't declared Chris to be a hurricane. Now, recon, of course, was in there as well, so that was obviously a feature. And let's not forget, recon comes before satellite. I don't know if recon planes are in there right now. Does anyone in here know?
I think I have a theory for why the NHC is doing this.
No, I don't know if there are any flights in there right now.
It's just a hunch, but I think the NHC has been trumped.
Well, that's exactly what I said before the beginning of tonight's
Yeah.
event, Orlando. It's funny how we share the same ideas. Well, I do. Before, it's gone the other way. I thought before this year, at least, or at a certain point in last year, actually, the National Hurricane Center are being too knee-jerk and alarmist, and now they've flipped completely the other way. I think they're being too conservative as well.
They're making the NHC great again.
Well, you're probably going to annoy a lot of people on our stream now. Wonderful. But we'll try not to politicize anything on our stream. That would be the day that the streaming service died. We'll try not to do that. Politics shouldn't be in science and vice versa. Well, I don't know, actually. Maybe science should be in politics. Let's move on. Let's look back at the latest on Maria. This is...
Oh, actually... Oh, go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead.
This is the latest imagery, just to show you again. The eye is quite clearly over the island of Dongyin right now. David, do you have that webcam still?
Yes.
The other one, please. Because it looks to me as though it's in the eye. And I think it's in the eye. Look how much the seas have calmed there compared to when we first saw it. It's still quite rough, but much calmer than they were before. And you can see some spray on the right-hand side. That may well be the beginning of the other side of the eye wall, maybe. I don't know. I'm obviously just guessing here, but it's quite clear to me that it's had at least part of the eye here, and that it may well be getting... Well, of course it will get round to eventually.
So, do we think a landfall?
Well, that's quite different when we go into the technical part of what constitutes a landfall or not. That will probably be something that we try and figure out after the event, but it's certainly a direct hit, which is when the main part of the eye wall hits a land area. Certainly that. I don't like to call it a landfall unless the center of the eye actually moves over land, and we know that some of the eye has moved over the land here, but we don't know whether... I would suggest that given how small the island is, it probably didn't make a landfall, but some people and some organizations class the passage of any part of the eye as a landfall, like the Philippines, so by some definitions it was. So there we are. It's coming up to a 11:45 midnight here in the UK, 11:45 UTC, and on the US East Coast it's 6:45. Over in China right now the time is... What time is it over there? I believe it's 6:45 AM.
Yeah, it's 6:45, because last time I checked it's like the opposite. of East Coast.
Yes.
Now that begs the question now, could you dig through the earth to get to China?
Oh dear. Who knows?
Possible.
Someone says the recon. Hold on. Yeah. Someone says the recon flight has been canceled.
Really?
That's what someone says. I don't know if that's true, but I mean that's what.
Where
one
did
of the
you see that?
comments-
It was one of the YouTube
Oh.
comments that said Kevin Shader, if I'm saying that wrong.
Someone is trying very hard to help us trying to tell us that it's been canceled.
Okay, interesting.
If it is, it must be related to some sort of malfunction in that case.
Yeah.
They were certainly scheduling to go in there this afternoon. Well, this evening as
Let
it
me
now
check.
is.
When was the last
Yeah.
aircraft reconnaissance mission?
It wasn't. It was this morning, wasn't it?
No, I think there was one that happened recently.
Recently.
Yeah, quite recently.
The
actually.
National Hurricane Center used for their update just an hour and 2 hours ago. Right?
I think so.
David, any observations that you can make from looking at this webcam image?
I think the conditions really haven't changed over the last 20 minutes. It's definitely calmer. There's no rain, so we'll see how this
Interesting.
one goes. Yes. Now, Typhoon Maria's eye is 30 nautical miles, but oblong shape. But
You can say that again.
there's no doubt that she is on, well, definitely weakening. Sea surface temperature, I think, is 28, and wave height is reducing. I'll just quickly have a look. I think it's about 20 feet. It could be lower.
Okay. So
Just
again, we have
read
two
information up.
systems that we are looking at tonight. Chris and Maria. If you have questions on any of those storms for us tonight, do send your messages in.
Wave height's 28 feet.
Cooper Sweetie would like to know our thoughts on the Pacific Meridional mode crash and its impacts on tropical cyclone genesis in the eastern and central North Pacific.
Well, I have Google searched that, but I just haven't got around to studying it. But we'll take that one on notice.
Well, the eastern Pacific, I wonder if it will have a storm crash like it did in 2010, what Gabe was alluding to earlier. Sea surface temperatures haven't been looking so great, and whether it may be in for a very poor showing again in the rest of this year. What do you guys think?
I think sea surface temperature is actually going to increase when you look at the various charts for below the surface.
In the
I'm
eastern
not
Pacific?
Up on that. No, sorry, Atlantic.
Ah,
Atlantic. I don't think we're going to see much in the eastern Pacific.
No. If the Western Pacific and Central doesn't end up, sea surface temperatures don't end up being very warm, then we may see what we saw last year, and because last year sea surface temperatures were expected to increase going into an El Nino, but they ended up declining, and instead of having an El Nino, we had a mild La Nina, and we had an active Atlantic. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying it's, from what I've seen, it's not out of the question yet, just yet.
Basically, it's unpredictable, and it's just as solid as a prediction as any other.
Just done a latest measurement according to the imagery as of 20 minutes ago, I think it is. As of 23 minutes ago, David, the center of Maria was located 5 miles west of the location that you're showing us now.
5 miles west.
And considering how it is moving west, I think a landfall is quite possibly occurred there. Obviously, it's had the eye. It's still in the eye by the looks of things, but it may be getting the other side a little bit now.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we still got the 30 nautical mile eye, so I reckon we're probably, within the next 5-10 minutes, we might see this becoming a little bit more rougher.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we're certainly seeing the effects of the storm in one location, and it's probably going to be replicated very soon on the coast of China. These are some Taiwanese islands in Lianxiang province, just off the coast of China, off the mainland of China, just near Fuzhou actually. A lot of little islands off the coast there. Some of them further out than others. One of the first ones to be hit, in fact the first one to be hit, is Dongyin, and then we were looking at that, and now we're looking at one of the other islands that may well get part of the eye. Beigan Island is there. That's a rather small island. Looking at it on the map here, it's not a large population center. In fact, you're looking at probably if the camera was to pan behind us, you would see perhaps a small town there. Population maybe a few thousand.
Nathan, just looking at it, panning to the left, you can see the cars parked there. You can see the waves crashing over the walls. And I've been thinking about wave height, which is 28 feet. I don't know what the tides are, and storm surge is something that I've been thinking of.
Well, that'll obviously be in the center of the storm, but whether that translates to the landfall as well remains to be seen. But I'd take that point. We are obviously, because the storm is about to make landfall, we are going to remain on the air for at least another hour after this one. There's certainly no guarantee that Maria will make landfall on the Chinese mainland in the next hour either, so we'll just wait and see what happens here. And you can see a lot of debris down there as well, David.
Looks like they're
It's a lot of rubbish.
Looks like they're starting to go back into the. Or it looks like they're starting to receive more. Or they're leaving the eye a little bit.
No, we're looking at another one now. This one's yet to see the eye yet. It's on its way.
Oh, never mind. There we.
I think that is definitely getting rougher.
Yes, that one certainly will be, because
I'm just looking at the boats.
it's getting close to close to the center of the eye.
How far is the eye from that webcam?
Good question. By our
That is a very good question.
last estimate, as of about 20 minutes ago, it was 26 miles east-northeast. Now that means that the storm, at the moment, it's pretty much moving due west, so it will probably miss this particular island, but it might be worse than that for this island, because it may well get the eye wall all the way through. Rather than having a little bit of peace in the eye, it's going to get 100% eye wall. Unless we get a southward jog, which I think is less than likely. It's likely to be rather a northerly jog indeed.
It's definitely getting worse.
Well, are we gonna stay on the stream until Maria makes landfall, or are we gonna?
Who knows? Who knows what we're going to do? We're here to serve, and if you've got any questions, comments, anything for us, do send your messages in, and we'll do our best. You can follow our
I do have
social media
go ahead, I'm
platforms on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force13 all in text. You can also add Force13 on Skype. You can also add my personal account on Discord, Fool13 #9094. For more details, we have a server on there as well, if you're interested in discussing the situation with fellow storm trackers. Gabe.
Just to answer at least question that I've been... Two questions from two separate people that I have seen about hurricanes being whether or not they were deserved to be retired. That one of them was Hurricane Klaus of 1990, and the other was Hurricane Palama, I think I said that right, of 2008. And I think the bigger answer is more of, it's not whether or not they deserve to be retired, it's that they were retired for their own separate reasons. And it's, if you take a look at another storm that is, we've a little bit debated on whether or not it deserved to be retired at one point, which was Otto. After it was retired because effects of the storm were apparently significant enough that it was called out and decided to have been retired. So,
All right. Thank you for
there
that.
you go.
We're just wrapping up this hour. Stay with us. We'll be here for another hour after the short break that we'll be having shortly. I just want to read off a few of the poll things that people have been saying. Amazing Dakota thinks that Maria should be retired worldwide if there are enough fatalities. Norway Tracking says yes, reminds him of Rita. The Wisconsin weather guy says yes, because Maria's probably cursed by now. Jeanson3 says yes if Typhoon Maria costs catastrophic damage. Black Tiger Cat 150 says yes because of both Marias, essentially. And plenty of others there as well, which we'll get to if we have time. After this, stay tuned. This is Force 13 Live. We'll have more Maria shortly. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force 13